All right. Welcome, Neville. We're live. This is the Delta RS semi-regular open development meeting. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I put a tentative agenda in the Slack channel. Let me make sure I've got that open and in front of me. QP, I was hoping, I'm hoping your audio is back in good working order. I was hoping you or I guess Florian won't be joining us today, but you might be able to just share maybe your screen and give us an overview of some of the changes that you and Florian have been working on for the Python bindings.
Yeah, let me try to find the place to share the screen. Let's see. Is it this button? Nope.
Bottom left, second to the left.
Okay.
Left of the raise your hand.
Chrome tab. So we've been working on, well, by we, I mean, mostly Florian has been working on a new method for the Python binding. So can everyone see my screen?
We can.
So we have actually released a new version of Python binding last night. So it's now at version 0.3. And the main new feature that we added to that is the new schema method. So previously, to get a schema for the Delta table, you would have to load the table, convert that to a PyArrow table, and then use the built-in schema inference from PyArrow to get that, which takes a long time and requires a lot of I/O to actually get the data from the table. So now we because the Rust implementation already loads the schema from the Delta transaction log, we now expose that schema directly through the new schema method. That means that you don't have to load the table anymore to read the schema. Well, actually, you don't have to load the file, the data file anymore to load the schema, and it makes it a lot faster now. There are still some implementation improvements we can add to this implementation. Right now, we were thinking of moving the schema. Right now, it's in Python. We want to move that into Rust so that we can avoid the JSON serialization and deserialization between these two languages. So that's one thing. And then another thing that I would like to talk about is I went through, so in the Delta connector project, we have some golden data sets for testing purpose. I've went through all of these golden test data sets, and we are passing all of it except those that doesn't have schema defined in the transaction log. So I don't know how useful those tables are, because in real scenarios you would always have a schema, I think, for a table defined in the metadata. So so I think in summary, I think at least for real.
QP, yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
The protocol, the Delta protocol, does allow for that behavior, right? The schema not being, are those, like, at least by the protocol, are those invalid tables?
I have not double checked on that. I think it's probably likely the case.
I might, from my recollection, the protocol requires the first commit to contain the schema metadata, which contains the schema.
Okay.
If I recall correctly.
Interesting.
Yeah, so maybe those are only for test purpose. We can also quickly look at it now to see if you can find it.
Well, the reason that I'm kind of curious about this is I think there's that and then the decimal thing. And since Denny is on the call, maybe you could give an overview of the decimal problem that you and Florian identified. I'm wondering if just because we're an independent implementation of the Delta protocol, I'm wondering if we're just finding bugs in the protocol or just gaps of what's missing there.
Yeah, I don't think it's mentioned here. It only says it didn't mention whether this is an optional field or not. It only says it's part of the field. But these particular field is definitely missing in some of those totem test data tables.
Yeah, sorry. This I forgot that I muted myself. So the schema itself should actually.
Denny, could you check your audio devices? It sounds like you're talking from the other end of the room.
Oh, got it. Okay, give me a second. Let me figure out what's going on. Sorry.
Yeah, but other than that, it's been working pretty well, and we passed all the other data tests.
See if Denny
can you guys hear me now?
We can. That's much better.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Yeah, no, what I was trying to say basically is that typically the schema string needs to be populated when you are about to establish the table and or change the schema. Otherwise, what ends up happening is that the example data or like the statistics that's referred to is actually placed inside there. So in other words, it's not consistent. So if you ever look at the transaction log, just from running it, you'll actually notice the fact that sometimes it has it, sometimes it doesn't.
Okay, so that is expected behavior. Then we will have to change the implementation.
Yes, that actually is. Yeah, that actually is expected. Yeah.
All right, that's good to know, and that's all I have.
Could you give an overview of the decimal thing while Denny is here?
Yes. 1 second. So I think we have the PR open, right? I don't remember if the PR is merged or not. Oh, there you go. Decimal, and it's approved. So Florian also found, I think Florian and Deborah also found that Tentative supports the decimal data type, which is not documented in the spec. So we added this implementation in the Rust and the Python binding, and Florian also sent a PR to add this to the official spec. So it's properly documented.
Sweet. I didn't actually know that he had opened this up. Go ahead, Denny.
Oh, I was about to simply say that, yeah, it looks like Lewin already went ahead and said, hey, good fix. So
as far as I know, this is the second protocol PR that was we sent from the Delta RS project. I also found one spec minor issue previously as well when I was implementing in Rust. So.
Cool. Neville, I know it's a little bit later in your time zone. Why don't we go with you first, and then we can come to the committers topic, if you are available.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. Hi, everyone. Cool. What I've been working on now is on the Rust writer, just getting us to 2.6 paquet compatibility with the format. There was I think I mentioned it in the last call that I joined 4 weeks ago. I had some issues with understanding, what was missing in the format because we didn't have, nanosecond timestamp support. So I tried out an experiment about 2 weeks ago, and then I went down a rabbit hole. It didn't work out. So I was able to sort of start it from scratch in the past week, and I've already submitted 2 pull requests. I'm joining on my phone, so I'll put the pull request on the chat after this. One is under review. The other one just builds on top of it. It's to allow us to use the logical type that was introduced in Paquet 2.4. So that gives us better forward compatibility support and writing, not losing precision when you're writing timestamp, nanosecond data, etc. The next changes that I'm planning on working on this week is just supporting the text format of the schema. So if you look at a Paquet file, maybe you print the schema to console or whatever, you'll find that you've got the repetition, the optionality. So you'll have a field that's repeated, that's required, and then they'll have the name, and then the data type, which is a primitive. You only have int32, 64, and a few others, and then you'll have the logical type, which is, for example, an int32, int64, etc. So the new version changes the naming convention a bit there. So that's the next item that I'll be working on. That should keep me busy for the rest of the week.
No, you mentioned 2.6 compatibility. I'm just trying to remember where everything is right now. Does it? I know that. Do we have the ability to write earlier versions of Parquet right now, or is 2.6 like where we need to be?
I think 2.6 is where we need to be. The format is at 2.8, but 2.7 and 2.8 mainly introduce, I think it introduces a new encoding format, I think Bloom filters, if I remember correctly, and then just some encryption stuff that's not relevant for our purposes. So I think 2.6 is a good format to be in, but at minimal 2.4. So even though we were building against the 2.4, specification of the format, we weren't really complying with it because of this logical type issue. So there's good backward compatibility in the sense that even if you're using a 2.6 writer, you'll be able to read anything before and generally even beyond 2.6.
I see. Christian, if you don't mind me picking on you for a moment. Christian, I don't know, Neville, if you saw his pull request. I'll drop it in the channel right now. But Christian is working on arguably the first Delta RS writer-based application. And he just put up a draft of the writer for Kafka Delta Ingest. Christian, you mentioned something on an internal chat about like the Delta RS writer support. Do you have what you need? Or
I think we do. So I will say at this point, I haven't tested anything with nested structs or lists or anything like that. But as far as I can tell, the Arrow writer and Parquet writer provide what we need for now. We have this Arrow already contains an in-memory writable cursor that seems to be working for the use case that we require. So I'm not sure if we need anything specific at this point. I don't think we need anything specific to be added for our writer support.
When you said you haven't tested nested structs or nested lists, in the use case for Kafka Delta Ingest, which is like pulling JSON through,
right?
Would that be like if someone were sending nested JSON objects through, those just wouldn't write properly until Neville's work is complete?
I mean,
like that's where it would come out, right?
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Exactly. But I mean, we can
flat objects only for now, I guess.
We can get pretty far down the road with flat objects only.
Gotcha.
And then, once that support is there, we can bring that in. I will say for our internal need, we will need the nested support. Yeah.
So, no, well, the reason that I bring up the Kafka Delta Ingest work is, Christian is starting to do this like now. Like we're working on this from the Scrib standpoint, which for anybody watching, that's our employer. But we've got enough of a test case there to where, like, if you've got branches or pull requests that you need some extra hammering on, I think probably between Christian, QP, and myself, we can definitely do that if you ping us.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, that's great because I don't think there's been any user, script and otherwise, who's using the Parquet writer who's come back with some feedback on deeply nested structs and lists. Because I think with some level of list nesting, I've done tests myself, but when it comes to like arbitrarily nested stuff, that's where I'm sort of relying on generating test cases, and sometimes they're not as complex as they need to be because on the Rust side of things, we don't have very good support for going from JSON directly to Parquet. I sort of have to go through Arrow to Parquet, and sometimes I encounter some blockers or issues on the Arrow side. I think one thing which won't be relevant for Kafka Delta Ingest in your use case for now at least but becomes relevant for general users who want to use it, is that because Arrow has a zero copy facility or functionality where you could sort of take, a record batch. Let's assume that you've got a record batch that has 100,000 records. So each column is 100. Column has 100,000 rows, and you only want to write the first 50,000 of that. You could sort of slice that record batch or slice the arrays and only select the first 50,000. It'll create a zero copy view of that, and then you could write that out. But writing that out now, I'm still testing I've got a blocker on the Arrow side that is preventing me from being able to test, with deeply nested structs. I mean, this becomes useful if let's say, for example, you've got a record batch that has 100,000 again records, and we determine that the page size from parquet size is an optimal one is probably, let's say, 10,000 or 5,000 records. You want to slice that into smaller portions so that you can be able to write it without creating a lot of memory pressure. So that's I think in our separate scope of work, that's item 7 and item 9. So there's still a bit of a blocker on the Arrow side, but we're trying to find a solution to that, and then I'll be able to work on that. But I don't think that stalls any work that we're doing.
Agree. I don't think that stalls any work that we're doing.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I didn't have any other questions. Does anybody else have any questions about the work that Neville's doing? Going once, going twice. All right. The only other thing that I had on my suggested agenda, and I can't underline suggested enough because I'm not the boss of everything. So if there are other topics, please suggest them. The other thing that I wanted to raise was an item that I wanted us to talk about last time around, but we just canceled because there wasn't a quorum. I wanted to discuss a policy for adding new committers to the Delta RS repository. Right now, I believe QP and myself, from anybody on the call, I believe we're the only ones that have merge. I think Denny technically can merge as well. But Florian has been contributing. I know that Christian has an opportunity to contribute coming up, and I wanted to just set some guidelines for when we give somebody write access to the repository. As QP or Denny, since you've been in the Delta project for a while, do you have any opinions or guidelines you might suggest, either of you?
Yeah, so oh, sorry, go ahead if you want to chime in.
No, go ahead.
Cool. So, okay, I was about to say that I would basically, we would probably want to establish some rules a la the Linux Foundation for, which I'm actually currently establishing for Delta overall. So whatever we want to experiment here with Delta RS, I was about to say that we're probably going to go ahead and just do the same thing for Delta overall, right? Because we have the tech stakeholders, right? But we didn't bother writing down the list for maintainers and all that stuff. So I wanted to go ahead and start that process as well. So that way you guys could, do exactly what we're doing right now, which is to invite more folks.
QP?
Yeah, I agree. Like it would be good if we are consistent across different projects within the Delta org.
Denny, from the Linux Foundation part of the Delta project, in Delta, the Sparks Delta implementation, there's this utilization of the developer certificate of origin, and I linked in our Slack channel the contributing.md. Is this something that they strongly encouraged? Is this something that Databricks, as the primary contributor to Delta, adopted, or do you have some history of where DCO came from for Delta?
Sorry, let me go look at that contributing again. Sorry. Oh, this one, got it.
Sign your work.
Yeah. So that's actually that's actually the one that I'm actually going to be updating. That was the context. Yeah. So right now we have the governance here, right? And so, in fact, actually, I was talking to the folks over at Stackstorm about how they designed it, and actually that's the one that actually I want to follow much more closer to. So let me see if I can find it.
Where I've spent most of my time in open source has been with the Jenkins project, and from a very early time, like 2007, we basically gave commit rights to anybody that asked for them.
Right.
And so Kosuke, who's the founder of the Jenkins project, his attitude at the time was, well, I can always revert something. I'm not worried about someone blowing anything away. To where his view was that if you extend that trust early, it helps contributors sort of get excited and engaged sooner rather than putting up gates. For anybody that doesn't know, with what we've got on GitHub, we can set up branch protection to prevent any force pushes or merges into main without going through pull requests. So generally speaking, like I'm certainly a bigger fan of a more lax approach to where we start giving out right commit bits like candy to people who are contributing already. But I want that to be something that existing committers agree to.
Yeah, I'm actually okay with it. The key concern with that is basically is there concerns of maintenance overhead that's typically associated with the more lax policies, right? I mean, if it's between just the seven of us here, I'm actually honestly not that concerned about it at all, right? It's more a matter of when we expand and include more folks, and then do we then start in essence locking things down a little bit, because for precisely that reason, the maintenance overhead of actually allowing that laxer policy. That's my only concern.
Yeah, I think the primary workflow comes down to who's going to merge the PR, right? Like QP's already had to merge 2 of my PRs, whereas he could have just done an approve and then waited for me to watch for other approvers, and then I could have merged it.
Also makes it easier to assign reviewers to PRs. Right now, I can only assign Tyler.
Which isn't very useful.
I actually can't assign anyone. I have to ping you guys in internal Slack to get reviewers, and I also can't add labels to issues and stuff like that. I don't know if that's on the same topic or not.
They're related. On GitHub, to add labels to issues, we can set permissions to triage, which is a permission level, which means you can work with issues. And that's a different permission level than write. Write supersedes triage, of course. I think I would recommend for QP, and I want to ping Florian on this as well. The Stackstorm governance document that Denny linked is definitely interesting and I think worth a read. If there are, from the Delta project standpoint, Denny, if there are no hard requirements about how we do this, I think we can play around with something.
Yes, there are no hard requirements. In fact, in a lot of ways, what we're doing right now allows us to figure out what's the best approach.
Okay. I mean, since we're here, I mean, there's only a couple of committers that are already here. QP, how would you feel about Florian getting push access?
I'm pretty happy with him. He seems to be pretty active on the development side.
Okay. That is the primary one I wanted to get addressed. Let me make sure that check our require pull request. I'm just checking our branch protection on main. We require an approver, and there's no force pushes and no deletions on that. So I'll go ahead and add Florian now to Delta RS committers. Now, one thing, Denny, I should mention, right now, Delta RS committers also are committers on Kafka Delta ingest. I may ask you to just create a separate team because these two projects are definitely gonna grow in different ways.
Separate team as in, sorry, what within the
Separate
context of
GitHub
within
team.
GitHub itself?
Yeah.
Gotcha. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and extend the invite to Florian, QP, Christian, Denny. Well, Denny already read it, but let's look at the Stackstorm contributing guidelines, and maybe I can take the follow up to. Oh, I can't invite somebody to this team, so Denny will have to invite them to the team.
Okay.
I'll make
just do me a small favor and just like Slack me or email me, and then I'll take care of it. I'll work with Ryan to take care of it.
I'm gonna put it in Slack right now. I'll take the action item to write up some like a contributing guideline similar to the Stackstorm thing, and we can discuss what we want from a proposal standpoint. Does that work for all QP and Denny?
Yeah,
sounds solid, my friend.
I just had a TV come in. I think that's Thomas again. That was the end of the suggested agenda that I had. Are there topics that anybody else wants to bring up for us to discuss?
Just want to voice a concern.
Oh, so one thing that I recommend everyone to
Can I go?
Go ahead. Yes, please go ahead.
No worries. I was just going to say I'm very excited to see Kafka Dalton just.
Yeah,
not a concern really. I was just being silly. Sorry.
So speaking of, I guess it also relates to what I just wanted to say is, in the Delta RS project, if you go to the discussion page, we actually have some interesting discussion around distributed system design for Delta RS itself, and some of those design will apply to the Kafka Delta ingest as well. So please feel free to check out those discussions and chime in for your own opinions, because it will have a big impact on how we do distributed concurrent write into Delta RS in the future. So that's it for me.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth highlighting the discussions. This is a new feature in GitHub that we're trying it out. There are definitely longer form design discussions that need to happen where Slack is probably not the best approach. So we've been exploring that. You can actually watch the repository. If you go to the watch in the top right and go to custom, you can actually just watch discussions if you would like to keep apprised of that.
Side note, did you ever figure out how to close a discussion?
I did not.
I think it's sort of like the mailing list where you never close a discussion. You just
fall off.
Walk away.
Hotel California.
Yeah, if we had a feedback line into GitHub, I would definitely be asking them that question. But I don't even know where to have discussions about discussions.
Yeah, it would be nice to archive a discussion.
Yeah. All right. Well, if that's everything, thank you everybody for joining. Just as a reminder, on the Delta RS page, we have it. Just mentions that we have this every 2 weeks at 9 a.m. on PST on Tuesday mornings. About an hour or so beforehand, I put the meeting link in the Slack channel just to reduce the probability of spammers, Zoom bombing us or anything. But thank you all for joining. I hope to see you in a couple weeks or on Slack.